Greetings, everybody. This is Brother Ron, aka R2C2H2 the Artivist, and you are watching We All Be News. News-free Dixie for the 21st century. This is my commentary on Witness, the Assassination of Malcolm X CNN special, which came on in advance of the 50th anniversary and observance of Malcolm X assassination. Now, I went to college in Missouri. Y'all call it Missouri. Some people call it Missouri. I call it Missouri, the state of Missouri. As you all know, that state is also called the Show Me State. Unfortunately, the CNN documentary that came out that's supposed to be giving us more details about the assassination of Malcolm X, Mrs. Mark, in my opinion, it did not tell us anything new or reveal any type of revelation as it relates to the assassination of Malcolm X, which marked this February 21st will be 50 years. It has not officially been solved. Now, I will say this in advance as well before I get into my critique, that the beautiful Sister el-shabazz, Brother A. Peter Bailey, Brother Zahir Ali, Brother Earl Grant, and Brother Gene Simpson, I think they did an excellent job in terms of talking about the legacy of Brother Malcolm, even Dr. Cornel West as well, and anybody else I forgot to mention. I think they did a wonderful job in terms of talking about the impact and legacy of Malcolm X, but the special in itself had little to do with really talking about what happened February 21st, 1965. Now, there's a couple of things I like to just get out there and offer as food for thought. I know in the documentary they kept on referencing former FBI Director J. Edgar Hoover's sentence in one of his documents, saying that something must be done about Malcolm X, something must be done about him. What they don't mention in the documentary was the fact that the FBI was working on things to do as it relates to neutralizing Brother Malcolm X. According to several sources that I researched, things I found out, that the National Secretary of the Nation of Islam at that time, John Ali, this is the National Secretary for the Nation of Islam, and one of Malcolm's closest friends in the nation was an FBI informant. That's right, Elijah Muhammad's National Secretary was an FBI informant. And this should have been brought up in the documentary, I feel like. And also, you look at the fact that Malcolm X, one of his chief security guards, Eugene Roberts, was an undercover police officer working through the BOSSI program. That's the Bureau of Special Services, which is also, you think about, connected to the COINTELPRO thing that the FBI was doing back in the 60s and 70s to neutralize leadership at home, particularly as it relates to the civil rights and black liberation movements. And so Malcolm X's chief bodyguard was an undercover police officer, Eugene Roberts. The National Secretary for the Nation of Islam, John Ali, was an FBI informant. So they let you know right then and there that it was a conspiracy to get rid of Malcolm X, that it was an inside job to get rid of Malcolm X. I remember calling that the core leader, James Farmer, met with President Lyndon B. Johnson at the time, and Lyndon B. Johnson asked him, was there any leads about what happened to Brother Malcolm? And I remember looking at that press conference that James Farmer had. He basically said that he believed that the death of Malcolm X was a conspiracy with international implications. Now, what the documentary failed to mention as well, I don't know if they got DVD extras of what they're doing. But Brother Malcolm was in the process of bringing charges of human rights violations in the United Nations as it relates to America. He was going to charge the United States of America with genocide and human rights violations as it relates to black people in America. This was a big thing. And also what the documentary failed to mention was the fact that Brother Malcolm was denied entry into certain foreign countries, like France. France would not let him enter. This is right before he got killed, because they was alerted that there was a hit out on Malcolm, and they did not want it to happen in France. So the French people denied Malcolm X entry. And so what people gotta understand, what I'm saying, you think about all this stuff that's going on. He trying to bring charges against the United States for human rights violations in the UN. He's denied entry into a country like France because of whatever situation about to go down. Malcolm was poisoned a couple of times when he was touring the world. For example, when he was in Africa, I believe he had what he thought was food poisoning. So he also noted that he had white men following him wherever he was going as it relates to the world. And people want to underplay the international impact of Brother Malcolm. In December of '64, Brother Malcolm went to Oxford University and did a fabulous job during the debates at Oxford Union. He did a phenomenal speech that really galvanized and inspired a generation of activists, of international activists, people of color. And so Malcolm X was one of the most brilliant, charismatic, inspiring, revolutionary voices of the 20th century. If he was not assassinated, for example, Malcolm X was going to meet Che Guevara, the leader of the Cuban Revolution, along with Fidel Castro, just days after his assassination. Imagine what could have happened if Brother Malcolm hooked up with Brother Brother Che Guevara. So you think about all these what ifs and whatnot. But unfortunately, the documentary did not touch upon those things. But they kept on referencing the fact about J. Edgar Hoover saying something to do something about Malcolm. And also, it was troubling to look at how they portrayed Elijah Muhammad and the Nation of Islam. I thought that was very troubling because, you look at the documentary, look at, a lot of things that have been coming out recently, you will make the mistake or assume that the Nation of Islam, or any black person for that matter, will be allowed in a system of white supremacy to be the mastermind in the elimination and the neutralization of their leadership. White supremacy, racism, the system that we are now in, will never allow any person of color, any black person or person of color, to be the actual mastermind and beneficiary of the removal of their leadership. It doesn't work like that. Even though the trigger men were black, you be rest assured that the masterminds were not black in the elimination of Malcolm X. There's too many things to point to the fact that there was government interference as it relates to the murder of Malcolm X, the assassination of Malcolm X. Also, you think about the FBI. What people don't understand is the FBI became the FBI because he took down Marcus Garvey. As a matter of fact, the first black agent hired in the FBI's history was known as Agent 800. He was hired to bring down and neutralize Marcus Mosiah Garvey, the greatest black mass leader that the world has ever known. So the FBI was not made by bringing down public enemies in the 30s. They were made by bringing down Marcus Garvey in the 20s. That's something people need to understand, because of this fear of a black messiah. So, they didn't stop in the 20s. They just, perfected it in the 60s and 70s, what they were doing. So I just want people to understand that. Eugene Roberts, of course, he was Malcolm X's chief bodyguard, undercover police officer, one of the founders of the Black Panther Party chapter in New York, also set up the Panther 21. who went to trial for allegedly trying to blow up historic landmarks in New York City. One of the Panther 21 was Afeni Shakur, who was pregnant with Tupac when she was going through the trial and in prison at that time. So also you fast forward to to 1968. If you look at the famous picture of Dr. King on the balcony slain, when the people are pointing and whatever they're pointing to, there's a guy kneeling over Dr. King. That guy's Morrell McCullough. At the time, he was undercover Memphis police officer. But later on, he became the first black commissioned CIA officer in history. So he was the first black commissioned CIA officer, Morrell McCullough. If you think about the scene with Malcolm, the guy trying to resuscitate Malcolm, that's Eugene Roberts. Like I said before, undercover police officer, Bossy Bureau of Special Services. Now, normally Malcolm doing his rallies, when he was speaking, he would actually have about 24 cops outside, acting as security. So you have 24 cops outside the premises, securing the premises where Malcolm would speak. But that day he had no security guards or policemen outside, a police presence. Similarly, Dr. King, the day he got killed, he had no police protection. And normally, when Dr. King came to Memphis, he would have an all-black security detail, courtesy of the Memphis Police Department. But the last time he made his trip to Memphis, he had no police protection, Dr. King. So similarly, Malcolm X did not have any type of protection from the police the last day of his life. So you got all this stuff going on. And also with Brother Malcolm too, another international thing was the fact that he was the first outsiders to be able to sit in on the Organization of African Unity meetings in Africa, in the African continent. So he was able to sit in on these meetings, which became the inspiration for his own Organization of Afro-American Unity. Malcolm X was one of the first people, he was the first black leader actually, to protest the Vietnam War. Dr. King came out against the war on April 4th, 1967. But Malcolm was already doing this before he died, protesting against the Vietnam War. He protested the state-sanctioned murder of Prime Minister Patrice Lumumba in the Congo. He was protesting that in front of the UN. So Malcolm was very much involved in geopolitical situations. Like Malcolm X was considered the black head of state of Black America. He was the head of the state of Black America. He was a true diplomat for the yearnings and the struggles of Black America. So let's look at Malcolm through those lenses. So like I said, the CNN report did not do a good job in terms of actually talking about the assassination in and of itself. A lot of people don't realize that the same day when Malcolm got killed in the Audubon, they actually did not secure the crime scene. As a matter of fact, they had a black church had a party later on that night, and that's crazy when you think about it. But that's not unusual. You think about what happened in Dallas on November 22nd, 1963. You think about what happened in Memphis on April 4th, 1968. The crime scene was always contaminated. They were never secured. There's a lot of things, and you look at it from a experience sense, who has the most to gain once the king is removed? But once again, also I thought they could have interviewed Rodnell Collins. He offered a lot of good information when we all interviewed him. That is the nephew of Malcolm X, who was the son of Ella Collins, who was Malcolm's benefactor in life. She's the one that gave him the money to make that life-changing pilgrimage to Mecca. So there's a couple of things missing, but for us, I'm glad as we all that we could offer you all access to like hours of interviews we did with folks who actually was there, who couldn't recall being in the Audubon that fateful day of February 21st, 1965. We did interviews with Brother A. Peter Bailey, and also Brother Roland Shepard, who was a white socialist worker party friend of Brother Malcolm, who would sell the socialist papers at the rallies. He was actually there the day when Malcolm got killed. And also another thing they didn't bring up in the documentary was a guy who was known as William Bradley. at that time period, but who is now known as Mustafa Shabazz. And I bring up Mustafa Shabazz because allegedly, according to several sources, including the late Dr. Manny Marable, that William Bradley, aka Mustafa Shabazz of New Jersey, could have probably been the rifleman that day that Malcolm got killed, who delivered the fatal shots that took out Malcolm. And the reason why I would bring him up because several years ago, Mr. Shabazz was featured in a Cory Booker campaign commercial. Cory Booker, who was the former mayor of Newark, New Jersey, who is now the U.S. Senator for New Jersey. He was featured prominently in one of his campaign ads. And so it is very fascinating. Also, I wonder if they reached out to Thomas Hagen, aka Tamaj Hayer, a person who stood trial for the murder of Malcolm X, who was just recently released after serving almost 50 years in prison, had that time doing a work release program. About 22 years of the time he spent in prison was doing a work release program. So I wonder if they reached out to him and got his side of the story, which would have been very interesting. Because the only reason we had a trial was because of the fact that he was shot that day by one of Malcolm's followers, and he was nearly beaten to death by many of Malcolm's followers after the assassination. So he's still here and he's freed now. And so it'll be interesting to hear what he had to say on the record. So I just think that it doesn't surprise me that mainstream media, once again, do not deliver as it concerns black people issues. I think it's very important because there's some statute of limitations on murder. But I think that, another thing that the documentary could have touched upon was the fact that, from my research and from talking to people to know that Brother Malcolm X and the Honorable Elijah Muhammad were blood relatives. Now that'd be an interesting story to talk about as well. Really, if you think about it, the information they left out can actually be found and supplemented via the internet. And we got to thank God for that avenue, because it's the real fourth estate. There's a lot of information there, because what I feel like the documentary did, in essence, was basically go over things about Malcolm's life and his legacy that you could find on the internet. I mean, there's a plethora of Malcolm X footage, of videos, of his speeches, of audio, of him, speaking in his own words, on his own terms, making it plain. Actually, it was good to see Brother A. Peter Bailey, who was an assistant and member of Malcolm's Organization of Afro-American Unity, the OAAU, and to see other brothers who participated in the inner circle of Brother Malcolm's life post Nation of Islam. But I want to thank you all for listening to my ramble. But it is so much information, and thank God for the internet, because now you all can go out there and supplement your research with all the, because so much footage of Brother Malcolm and audio and so much stuff out there, so many books to read. And some books I would recommend, because CNN evidently didn't know, like almost 20-something years ago, that a brother named Carl Evans wrote a great book called The Judas Factor that talks about the plot to assassinate Brother Malcolm X. You also got Zach Kondo, who's a great Malcolm X researcher, and also some other books as well. But let's take advantage of the internet, everybody, and get all this information, and you will always see that no matter how bleak it may get or how confusing, that is an inside job. There's a reason why Malcolm X is no longer with us, along with so many other freedom fighting brothers and sisters. So with that said, I want to thank you all once again, and check out all the stuff we have done on Malcolm. You found that information, I will post it in this video, as well as in the subscriber box. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already, and just know that we love you all madly, and the best is yet to come. Take care, family.